Nick the Informative Fisherman here on behalf of Lucky Tackle Box, guys. I keep hearing, oh, I threw a swim bait. Oh, I threw a bluegill swim bait. That doesn't explain much, guys. Swim baits are so different and so far apart of each other, from rate of fall to the glide action to a single boot tail action. What I'm going to do is explain a few different styles and a few different baits I've received in Lucky Tackle Box and some of my own personal baits, and kind of explain the difference of where I would go about using them, and hopefully better fill in the blanks for you guys so you'll know the baits that you do have, where to apply them, and where to go out and throw them. So let's start off with two smaller ones. This is the live target bluegill that I got in the Lucky Tackle Box, and a monster bass multi-segmented bluegill in the LTB box. They're about the same size, but very, very different. Two treble hooks, one top hook right here, a solid piece body, a multi-segmented body. One thing you're going to notice, very audible. No audio at all, very subtle. So now we have dirty water is going to work better. Clear water is going to work better. Another thing, weedless, right here. Now we can throw this in a grassy place. This, we're going to have to wake or bring up shallower, and they're going to have to come out and hit it. Hookup ratio naturally going to be higher with treble hooks. Hookup to land ratio is going to be more difficult. Hookup to land ratio on a bigger single hook will be better, but hookup ratio will be lower. So let's think about this. Clearly we have a subtle, clear water scenario, or the bite's more difficult. The sun's bright, it's slick out, and we need to get down right in their face. The weedless option is going to be a much better option. During a low light period, early in the morning, later in the evening, or it's a little choppy out on the lake, this can be your better choice. Both of them are about the same size, so the draw power is about equal. The larger the swim bait you go, like this Savage Gear bluegill right here, much larger, this is going to appeal to a bigger fish, and also it has more draw power. And when I say drawing power, this means how far it can pull a bass in from a distance to want to eat it. The smaller the meal, the less drawing power it has. A bass may travel 2 feet to get this, where he may travel 8 to 10 feet to get this. Now, let's take this for example. Another multi-segmented swim bait, but it's silent, all right? Now we have a top hook here. Clearly this one can bump the bottom without getting snagged, but it's a line through to where we can put it right here. All line through means is that hook can slide freely. Once the bass is hooked, it can pop out, and he no longer has weight of the leverage of the lure to shake that hook out of his mouth, where a fixed hook has the contrary. The problem to that is now the leverage is right there. But a smaller bait, they don't have as much weight to throw, to where a bigger swim bait like so can be a little bit better. So multi-segmented versus a boot tail. A boot tail is very subtle. It's a slow moving, natural, very natural presentation, where this swim bait here has a snake action moving through the water. So if you have crystal clear water, maybe you would want this style in a boot tail, but maybe if you had water where you could only see maybe 2.5 to 4 foot deep, that snake action is going to give just enough action and movement to help them find it. They're going to feel it with their lateral line, that dark line down their side, and come and get it. And maybe they're feeding on that 4.5 inch size versus maybe they're feeding on this 3-inch size. That is an evaluation you need to take. Now, let's take this for example. The boot tail versus a single jointed glide. And I would actually call this a glide, though baits 3 inches or smaller, that's that Jackal, Gyron is what this one's called. Now notice something in a jointed swim bait right there. See that tail doesn't sit very far? I'm going to grab a depths bull shooter and see there's a little bit more angle to that bait. So this tail can travel farther side to side. What that's going to cause, the bigger the movement is, the wider the glide, versus this little guy right here is going to be a very subtle gliding motion. Subtle gliding motion can help you when pressure's very high. It's slick calm, or the water's extremely cold. A subtle glide can help. In the pre-spawn, when bass are actively hunting, a bigger, more aggressive glide can appeal to a bigger fish They can also feel it a lot better, and they're more likely to strike it when the water temperature's a little bit more doable for them. But if conditions are very, very tough or it's extremely cold, that tighter glide motion can be key. But once again, we see smaller to where the drawing power is not as much, so we want to be right next to the fish if possible. Paralleling the boat docks, coming right down a rock wall, letting it fall to the bottom, bringing it along the bottom, whereas a bigger swim bait like this can draw them from a much farther distance, to where we don't need to put this near boat docks, to where if there's 5 or 6 fish under a boat dock or in a tree, we can pull out one at a time and catch multiple, versus throwing a smaller one up next to a tree. We'd have to get it close, we would hook that one fish, it could cause all sorts of craziness in there and spook the other ones. So maybe we do want to try a bigger one next to a tree. Now let's talk about rate of fall. Here's the Jackal Gantarelle. This one is a suspending style, multi-segmented, almost like a glide bait right there. You'll see it's got another little segment right there, but it sits about 3 feet under the water, to where you can use it like a jerk bait. You can reel it along, looks natural, and stops and will pause. That'll often trigger a bass. If you pause it right next to a tree or a boat dock or next to a rock pile, they'll come out and get it. It's got subtle feathers on there. They'll nip at that. You'll catch fish like that. This doesn't cover water as fast as something like this bull shooter here, which is going to fall a little bit faster, that you have to constantly retrieve to get to glide. This has better drawing power for open water because it'll glide farther, but this guy right here, being able to stop next to an object, has better drawing power because it's suspended. So this has a suspended style rate of fall. So let's take the another thing here. Sits 3 feet. Here's a wake bait. This is a Chinese one I got off of eBay. I don't even know who makes this, but this one will sit about 1/4 inch under the surface, causing a wake the whole time, but it glides. Now let's take this predicament that they're coming up and they're analyzing something sitting a couple feet under the water and they don't want to hit it. It's slick, calm conditions out. A little bit of ripple might have been better for this, but it's slick, calm. Now we're breaking up that surface water, okay? It's hard for the bass to analyze. That little underspin's throwing a little bit of flash. Now they're going to come up and analyze it and hit it or bump it and peck it. And you can wake it like that. So different time, different place, guys. You need to understand every single bait is not a particular category. If you say you were throwing a swim bait and you didn't say what type, what size, anything, you ask an expert, they're not really going to understand what you're talking about. So start separating them out. Oh, it was a multi-segmented bluegill. It was a glide bluegill, but it was like a 3-inch one. And remember, bigger has more drawing power, appeals to that bigger fish. That bigger fish wants to eat a bigger meal, but there's always less bigger fish. The smaller you go, the more appeal it has to all the fish, but you need to hit a big one right in the nose for him to eat it. I'm not going to run 1/4 mile down the street to eat one French fry. I might do that for a big old steak or a double Whopper, but if you toss me that French fry, I'm much more likely to eat it. So if I'm there next to that dock and you bring this French fry up to me, yeah, I might eat it, versus you bring that double Whopper out and away from me, then I'm bigger, I may go eat it. But at the same time, if you miss me and I'm big by 5-6 feet with this guy, I may not have wanted to travel to go get it. And if you were throwing this, you may have caught me instead of my little baby. I'm Nick, the Informative Fisherman. Guys, if you appreciate this video, make sure to subscribe to the Lucky Tackle Box and follow us on all of our other social media channels. We'll see you next time.